you're currently holding your breath, gripping your phone like it's a lifeline, or wondering why your heart is racing while you're just sitting on the couch, congratulations. You've officially joined the club. Welcome to the Everything is Fine Society, where everything is actually on fire, but we're all just agreed to keep pretending we're okay with the smoke in our lungs. Welcome back to the Unveiled Mind. I am your host, Jacqueline Kyler, addiction therapist, healer, plus-size yoga teacher, Ayurvedic practitioner, as well as just someone who's exhausted in this world. Today we are taking a talk about the electric chaos happening inside your skin. It's not the news necessarily. It's not your inbox. It's not your situationship. I'm really talking about the nervous system, and specifically the fact that almost every single one of us is currently operating on total central nervous system overload. And honey, let me tell you, your body is tired of your choices. I want you to do a quick body scan with me right now. No woo-woo, just real. Are your shoulders up by your ears? Is your jaw clenched? Are you clenching your butt? Why are you clenching your butt in traffic? Let it go. If you're sitting in a chair, your feet up, and you're sitting on the top of your foot, pressing those toes forward, heel up off the ground, waiting to jump, even though you're sitting in a chair. Are you breathing in your chest like a little rabbit? Or are you into your belly like a human being who feels safe? But I thought, you're not broken. You're overloaded. And today we're going to name it, understand it, and then, because I love you, we're going to undo it. Now, this podcast in particular is not to replace any form of therapy, medical direction that you are taking with a qualified professional. I am offering these techniques. These are techniques that I utilize in my addiction treatment world, but do not start practicing this on other people. Pay attention to yourself. Allow this to be a journey of the self and do what feels right for you. But again, continue any and all treatment regimens that you are currently getting and following to make sure that your optimal health stays optimal. We're going to talk clinical here for a second, but we're going to keep it a little bit spicy. When you hit the acute overload or the crap moment, your amygdala screams, your adrenaline spikes, and your body prepares to either fight a bear or run a marathon away from one. So if you look back to what we were talking about at the beginning, if your feet are up, you're sitting in the chair, and you're up on your toes, that's almost like a marathon run pose. The body is literally getting ready to run. Take a minute and just put your feet flat down. Because what's happening in those 10 minutes of about your time that's staying in that space, it's just not a feeling. It's a full body chemical soup. Your brain activates two systems at once. First, your sympathetic adrenal medullary system, also known as the SAM system, that dumps a whole bunch of norepinephrine and adrenaline. And that's why your heart pounds, your pupils dilate. Your sympathetic nervous system is a network of nerves that helps your body activate its fight or flight response. And the system activity increases when you're stressed, in danger, or physically active. And so it's something that naturally happens, and it can help us when we're doing things like working out. We've learned how to harness, we don't have to run through the Serengeti hours and hours and hours and hours and hours at a time, because we can use this fight or flight response to help our bodies as we're going through this. The problem is when we're in a long-term or non-stop status. After your brain activates that first system, the sympathetic adrenal medullary system, again, that SAM system, the secondary system that comes on is the HPA axis, and this is the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. And so that's a really long game stress system. The hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis regulates cortisol production, which influences the metabolism, immune response, and neurobiology. And cortisol isn't just a stress hormone. It helps control your sleep-wake cycle, metabolism, and immune regulation. In a real emergency, that's genius. It keeps you alive. While cortisol releases to adaptive and acute stress, prolonged exposure to elevated levels can result in adverse effects. And the problem is we're not fighting bears. We're fighting emails. We're fighting political discourse. We're fighting the general vibe of a world that feels like it's glitching, like a really bad old movie on that VHS. So the system never really gets an all clear. It doesn't get that release that happens. And this is when that acute becomes chronic. Chronic stress disrupts the regulatory balance of the HPA axes, leading to its dysregulation. This dysfunction results in abnormal cortisol production, persistent activation, and associated physiological alterations. Your body stops having a daily rhythm, high in the morning, low at night, and instead you get what researchers have been beginning to call that flat cortisol curve. Your cortisol plateaus, and that plateau is now recognized as a marker of a stress-related circadian dysregulation linked to that chronic stress of various forms, from family conflict to loneliness. So we're going to get real kind of personal and into your body about this. And so your brain physically remodels when this happens over time. So when we really have this HPI axis on its fritz, basically, and it's not doing what it needs to, a couple of things really happen. Your brain physically remodels, and that's not really a metaphor at all. In studies on chronic stress, researchers have found significant neural remodeling. There was a stress-induced shrinkage of dendrites in the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex, and concurrent hypertrophy of the dendrites of the amygdala. So what that translated is your fear center, the amygdala, gets bigger and more sensitive. So it's super sensitive to the word. So that's where that symptom of PTSD can come in. So that panic and super sensitivity, hyper awareness, this is where that kind of starts to play in with this overexpanded amygdala. Acute traumatic stressors were found to increase spine density on blastophoma amygdala neurons in chronic stress that leads to expansion of those dendrites. Sorry, I got a little dry mouth, so if there's any pauses in here, I apologize. I stopped myself from speaking. So meanwhile, as this amygdala has gotten bigger and more sensitive, your CEO brain, the prefrontal cortex that helps you make decisions, regulate emotions, be patient, gets smaller and weaker. So we're getting more sensitive to our fight or flight response when our central nervous system is firing at all these things all of the time. And then the thing that actually has a rational part of what we can do and how we can get out of it is now shrinking. And this, again, helps make decisions, regulate those emotions, and most importantly, be patient. So many people in addiction treatment, mental health treatment, behavioral treatment, and the whole gamut, their biggest issue with staying within treatment and staying connected to a trusted clinical person is the fact that they don't and can't stay. They're super sensitive. The ability to be patient, to sit, to go through the healing process is less because the body is thinking it's under attack. It doesn't have time to heal, which is where we get this manifestation that's, I don't mean to stereotype, but when we're looking at kind of maybe the extreme right of things, and some of those MAGA, if you will, are really kind of saying, we don't have time for healing. I don't have time for that stuff. And so in essence, they are more in touch with their body than maybe some of the more liberal lefts are, because they are listening to that command. The problem is some of them on both sides of the argument, absolutely not really that MAGA has a side. I don't mean to legitimize them, but people may listen to this that are, and I'm just telling you that you are manifesting that ability where your body is telling you, I don't have time to heal, because your body thinks it's completely under attack. So again, when they say, I can't think straight, or I'm so anxious, I keep snapping, it's not a character flaw. That's architecture in the brain. You are literally wired more for survival and less for logic. Chronic stress causes remodeling of those dendrites and synaptic connections in many brain regions. That's why you can't remember where you put your keys. So you have this memory loss that can be acute as well as chronic when you're under prolonged periods of stress. And so what this is again showing us that there's all these deficits that are starting to come in, and all those times that we're seeing people or family members or friends that might just be like, how are you continuing to forget? Or why are you so sensitive? This is why, because over time their amygdala has become so big and sensitive, and the rational, reasonable part of their brain is literally shutting down. The second thing that really comes down is your gut shuts down on purpose. Your automatic or your autonomic, nervous system has those two branches again, the parasympathetic, which is that rest and digest, and the sympathetic, which is the fight or flight. When the sympathetic takes over, your body makes ruthless energy calculation. So Harvard Health has put it plainly. It says when a person becomes stressed enough to trigger that fight or flight response, for example, digestion slows or even stops so that the body can divert all of its internal energy to the sympathetic division that controls, again, that fight or flight response. And digestive symptoms temporarily shut down. So yes, bloating, nausea, IBS, why am I starving? And then nauseous. That's your gut being told you are being haunted. We are not digesting the salad right now. So no matter what good choices you make, the food's going to sit in there longer. And when food sits in any place for any period of time, the likelihood of it turning into fat to be stored later goes into play. And so all these things can happen. And this is why, again, we're seeing so many problems with gastrointestinal issues. Stomach cancers are on the rise, different things like that. And a lot of it can be tied to, of course, diet, exposure, family history, but on top of it, the actual issues that occur in the system that are being shut down. So then now, all right, so our brain is like super sensitive and can't make sense of anything. So it's a toddler at this point. And then your gut is shutting down. So you're not getting adequate nutrition. Your stomach is hurting. You have all this stuff going on. What else could happen? Well, your immune system and hormones get very confused because they don't know what to do. At first, cortisol is an anti-inflammatory. And so it allows, when it first gets kind of squirted out, it breaks down inflammation in the body, getting it ready to really be able to take off and run and possibly not pay attention to some of the inflamed tissue that you're usually around. But when it stays high for weeks and months, your tissues become resistant. Chronic stress leads to impaired HPA axis feedback, glucocorticoid receptor resistance, and paradoxical cortisol dysregulation, fostering a pro-inflammatory state. So basically, you end up becoming a massive ball of inflammation. Even again, if you're taking those holistic and natural, maybe strides towards bringing down inflammation in the body. You become more susceptible to infection, metabolic syndromes, obesity like myself, cardiovascular disease. And literature really is now directing links that chronic stress is closely linked to the progression of diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, driven by excessive cortisol production and HPA axis dysregulation, along with neuroinflammation in the nervous system. So that's why, again, when you take that family vacation, you immediately get sick. Your body was holding it together with an acute cortisol duct tape. You weren't stressed. You are biologically wired, again, for survival. And again, where that world, the threat is invisible and it really never ends. And you just have to kind of really remind yourself over and over again, you are not lazy. You are not undisciplined. You are exhausted from fighting an invisible war 24 hours a day. We really have to be real about the energy of the world right now. If we want to use a metaphor or a truth, the darkness of this era has a very specific goal. It wants you exhausted. It wants you on high alert. Because the person in a state of total CNS overload, again, central nervous system overload, cannot think critically. They cannot innovate. They cannot love deeply. They can only react. And a reactive population is a controllable population. Look around. Red, blue, right, left. For the first time in history, everyone actually agrees on one thing. The world is absolutely messed up. We're all just arguing about why. And there are nasty, nasty people on both sides. Right now, we're seeing the right side scream and its darkest side is showing. But there is darkness on the left-hand side as well. We can't be blind to that. And the goal of their system is to keep us in a state of perpetual urgency. I like to call it berserker mode. And I'm sure other people too. I'm not the first person to say, wow, this is a berserker society. And again, but we've seen it in movies. The hero goes full force, black, never stops, pushes. They fight every enemy. They don't sleep. They push through the pain. They go nonstop until the final boss is dead. And then what happens? They collapse. They break. They lose their mind. We're trying to live our entire adult lives like we're in this berserk mode. And then we wonder why we can't remember where we put anything or why we snapped at somebody in public for no reason and possibly just for breathing too loud. And I do want to be so tender here. If you have felt more sensitive lately, like sounds are louder, lights are brighter, people's energy is just too much, you cry at a Target commercial, you're not being weak. Your nervous system is literally just saying, I have been holding it together for a really long time without being helped. So today, we're going to hold you. When we come back, we're going to start talking about some things that can help during this time. Again, I must really make sure that I emphasize the fact that whatever your treatment team is doing with you, please continue it. Talk with them. These things are beneficial, hopefully, in order to allow yourself to unwind. But it may not be as simple. Our central nervous systems have been so wired. And if you have extra trauma, sexual trauma, physical trauma, emotional trauma, this does require some kind of outside help, no matter what it is. Choose the path that's right for you, but make sure your path is educated, is unbiased, and is truly just looking for the best in you. So when we come back, we're going to start talking about some of those exercises that can bring it back. I'd like to thank today's sponsor for the Cumin Club. Again, if you go to thecuminclub.com and you put in code word Jackie, listeners of my podcast get 30% of all of the delicious sauces and Indian meals that are available at thecuminclub.com. Absolutely amazing food, absolutely affordable, and you're getting 30% off your whole order with code word Jackie. All for the Unveiled Minds podcast listeners. Welcome back. I want to be very clear. You cannot outrun a fried nervous system. You have to invite it back to the table. When we're healing trauma and central nervous systems and all of these things, especially in the middle of a battle, because we are in the middle of a battle. Like, don't get me wrong. I am not trying to say that there's not horrible things outside. We just need to be able to take some form of central nervous system undoing so that we can stay focused, stay on board, ride the causes, and help those people that can't help themselves. And so there is, again, that balance between being informed, because yes, we need to know what's happening, and being consumed. If you spend 24 hours a day absorbing the trauma of the globe, you aren't helping the world. You're just becoming another casualty to the noise. You have to purposefully, aggressively, and unapologetically take a break. Peace is not passive anymore. Peace is a discipline. Peace is a protest. Because the most radical thing you can do in this world right now, when you are wanted to be panicked, is to be calm. So let's get calm together. I want you to stay where you are. Even if you're driving, keep your eyes on the road, but you can still do these. If you're at home, this is your permission to slip into a look of a little weird. Since most of you are probably broke like myself or just hate spending money, here are 10 ways to unstress your system for absolutely $0. Do these with me right now. Give them a chance. If any of them actually work for you, start to implement them in your day as you can find them. The first one is the psychological sigh. You're going to take a deep breath in through your nose, and then you're going to take a tiny, sharp sip of air at the very top to fully inflate those lungs. And then you're going to let out a long, slow exhale through the mouth. You're going to do this 3 times. This is a biological reset button. So again, start inhaling through your nose. When you get to the point that you think you can't put in any more air, take a little more sip of air and then let it out through your mouth as a sigh. Do it one more time. Inhale in. You're at the top of the breath. Take a little and slowly let it out. Take a last deep breath in through the nose. You're at the top. In through that mouth a little, and then slowly let it go. That's that sigh. So again, this is that biological reset button. You probably feel pretty good. This is a biological reset button. It was identified by researchers Dr. Jack Feldman and Dr. Mark Krasnow, and is brought into the mainstream awareness really by Dr. Andrew Huber at Stanford. And the double inhale techniques works by reinflating the small air sacs in your lungs, rapidly offloading excess CO2 and triggering your parasympathetic nervous system through the vagus nerve. There was a landmark Stanford study that showed the mechanism, the second sipping inhale does reinflate those collapsed alveoli in the lungs, again, getting rid of that CO2 really quickly, while the extended exhale specifically activates that parasympathetic branch via the vagus nerve. And so this is, again, slowing that heart rate within seconds. So when you do it, how did you feel? Ask yourself. The next one's another fun one that I do quite often is take your thumb and point your finger and bring them up to your ears. Place them just inside that little bowl in the ear. And you're going to gently massage that hollow part of the outer ear. There are nerve endings that tell your brain, hey, we aren't being eaten by a fox. Relax. You do this for just about 30 seconds. And it feels wonderful. The next one we're going to do is that seated twist. You've all seen it. Most of you guys do it most days. Your body knows what it needs to heal itself. Now if we do it with intention, not just I got to crunch my back, turning side to side, stretch it out, being a lot more purposeful at it. So while you're in your chair, plant your feet flat, place your left hand on your right knee, and gently twist gently to the right. Hold for 3 breaths. 1, 2, 3. Now switch, bring it to that left hand on that left knee. Turn, 2, 3, and go back to center. And you're not trying to get this gigantic, big, giant twist. You're going to get a twist that's substantial and does something for you, but it allows it. We're not truly doing like a full seated twist like we do in yoga where we're trying to wring out those organs. This is just simply to give ourselves a nice little reset. After this, we're going to do the shoulder shrugs to nowhere. Pull your shoulders all the way up to your ears. Hold them there for 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3, and then drop them like they're made of lead. Let that weight leave you. Pulling it up one last time. And drop it like it's lead. Allowing all of the excess to leave. The 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding is a little bit more involved, but it's definitely able to be done and helpful. So think of 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. Get out of your head and back into the room that you're in. So if you're starting to feel like you're drifting off, you're starting to feel this is a great technique to bring you back to center, bring you into that place that you want to be. But it also can be done throughout the day before you intentionally start work, before you intentionally need to do something and you need to get really, really specific. Go through it again. Again, that's 5 things you see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you hear, 2 things you smell, and 1 thing you can taste. And get out of your head and back into that room again. Now, the chair pelvic tilts. This is, and it may sound weird, and the only way I can best describe on how to do this is you're going to basically take your perineum and move it back and forth in the seat. And so while sitting, arch your lower back to create a gap between you and the chair. You're going to arch that lower back so that you're creating that gap there. So you're pushing that belly forward like those bodybuilders that kind of have those overextended tummies, put it that way. And now bring it back in, squeeze the stomach in really tightly and move that tailbone towards the back of the chair again. Bringing it forward again, sticking that stomach out, pushing that forward, arching it so that your low back's away from that chair, and then pushing it back, squeezing that tummy in and pushing that tailbone right there. This really can help open up that lower spine and release some tension in the pelvis and that. And there's a lot of attention being paid to the pelvis structural alignment, things like that. I can remember in school when I was learning osteopathic adjustments and things like that. We would learn about how the structure and how if you built a house and your body was the house, where things needed to rely, where things work. We're physical engineers, if you will. And so with this chair pelvic tilt, it can and will open up a lot of those nerve endings as well that help release those pelvic tilts. Some cold water or ice shock. So you can do a couple of different things. First, you can put your head in a bowl of water that has ice in it. And you can do that very quickly. Just submerge your face and count to 3. So 1, 2, 3. Pull it up. And then when you go back a second time and do it again, you're going to hold it down there for 5 seconds. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, pulling it up. The other thing you can do is take an ice pack and stick it under your armpit or both armpits. And this is going to allow your body to think that something is wrong and it's getting cold. We need to immediately turn down all systems so we can save energy to be going for as long as we are. Because the body also knows the colder it gets, the more that the calories you're going to have to burn. So this cold water shock really goes through and pivots from panic to cold. Wow, it's cold. Brings you directly into your body. This is an important one. It's one that I really need to do more of. And it's hard. As I say, I'm a podcaster. My life lives in the world of technology, note-taking, assessments, so like social safety plans, all things that we do digitally all day long. By having a digital fast. So turn your phone off, not on silent, off for exactly 30 minutes. The world will be still messed up when you get back, but your brain will have a chance to breathe. If you're really, really, really struggling with digital, start off with 10 minutes, then work up to 20. Give yourself some time, but do it. Don't create a system where you're not doing it because you're like, oh, it's 2 weeks in and I'm still on 10 minutes. No, first couple of days, do 10 minutes. The next couple of days, do 20 minutes and then get up to 30. And the deeper that your addiction is, or maybe the exposure you have, aim for longer, up to an hour if you can, to really do that digital fast, because it also will keep you off social media, contacts. You just have nothing to do but yourself. The last one here, I really, really love. This one I do. I talk to clients about it. We do it all the time, and it's called the silly shake. And so you're going to stand up and shake your limbs for 60 seconds, and you're literally just going to shake. It's how animals in the wild discharge trauma after a predator chase. So zebras, when they get done and they've successfully moved away from the lion, they're not there. They're going to shake for a few minutes, and they're going to shake their whole body and shake it off. And this is a way that their animals are letting go of all the chaos that just was drowned up in their body so that they can return to grazing the grass fairly quickly without ramifications. You feel that, right? The tingly, alive, slightly stupid feeling? That's your system coming back online. That's your vagus nerve saying thank you. That's your prefrontal cortex coming back to the table. Listen, you're not a machine. You're a biological being in a chaotic era. You were designed to know you were not designed to know about every tragedy on earth the second it happens. You were designed to know about your village. Stop punishing yourself for feeling overwhelmed. Instead, start prioritizing your peace as a form of rebellion. Because the most radical thing you can do in a world that wants you panicked, again, is to be calm. Science says your brain can remodel, your gut can come back online, your cortisol can find its rhythm again, but you have to give it the signal that you are safe. So try one of those things that we did, just one. And if you know someone who is living in that berserker mode, send them this episode. Don't say anything. Just send it and say, breathe with her. Again, this has been The Unveiled Mind. I am Jacqueline Kyler, addiction therapist, plus size yoga teacher, transgendered human being in the United States of America, scared, overwhelmed, and exhausted. And I must find a way to get on and to get out of here and to breathe. Until next time, stay unveiled.